Back, we are diving into booked and published. This is getting you out into the media. You have done all the work. You did all the work. You figured out who you are, what you're here to do, the people you're here to serve, how you're here to serve them. You've gotten clear on your offer. You know how to communicate it. You've even been practicing coming up with content. And now it's time to start sharing it with the world. Maybe you want to get on a podcast. Maybe you want to get published in a magazine or get into an article. Maybe you want to get booked on stage, get on a TV show. This is going to be the process to help you do all of that. And I'm super excited to share it with you because visibility is incredibly powerful. When you have something to share, it's so important to be able to get it to the masses. And you want to use all distribution channels. So we don't want to just be on social media. That's a huge part because all of the world is on social media, let's be honest, right? Our people are there, but they're also watching the news, they're watching TV, they're watching talk shows, they are listening to podcasts. Like people are consuming content everywhere. So you want to diversify your distribution. And here's the thing, when I was a publicist, we would charge like 10K a month to do PR for people. And people pay like 5 to 10 grand to buy courses to learn how to do PR. So what you're about to get in this course is invaluable that people pay so much money for. And you get to take advantage of that and use that for your brand. And I want you to understand what a gift that is. And I want you to take it and treat it seriously to get your message to the masses. And this is also something I want to emphasize. This is a highly sought after skill. And so once you have this, you're just putting more tools and skills in your tool belt for whatever it is that you're here to create with the world. So we're going to dive in and I'm going to give you all of the behind the scenes aspects and make this as easy as possible for you. Published and booked. Let's dive in. So let's talk about the transformation that takes place through visibility. So media is integral to scaling your level of reach and getting these new levels of growth. So whether you are just starting or you are just wanting to expand your impact, you can amplify your visibility and reach new audiences. This is what I was talking about with distribution. This gives you instant third-party validation and credibility. I can say I've been published in Forbes, I've been in Entrepreneur Magazine, I've been here, I've been there, or I was on this podcast. That is instant credibility when people come across you on social media. That is instant credibility when people come across your website. That is instant credibility when somebody hears about you for the first time in one of those publications. From a buyer psychology, this is already implanting, they must be an expert. If somebody else is sharing what they're doing, it must be an expert. It gives you a competitive edge in your market. And I promise you, most people in your industry are not going to have access to this. It's so rare. You get to cut through the noise, okay? You get to reach your ideal customers. You're cutting through all of the noise that is out there with your message on multiple distribution channels. And you're going to build brand awareness to protect your reputation proactively. And you get to become the authority and the go-to expert in your market, which is, I mean, it's a gift. If you did your competitor analysis earlier, you probably saw they don't have a ton of media coverage. And if they do, they're probably spending a lot of money on it. And you are going to have this skill and be able to execute on this easily to, as you change your message, as you have a new offer, you have this portal of distribution that you have at your fingertips. Do you know how powerful that is? I hope you guys realize this is so cool. I want to talk about the different types of media that are available to you. So there's a traditional, which is a feature. This is a full article about nothing else but you. So this is often you'll see that person's picture as the feature, full article all about them. Okay. And then there's a mention, and this is when you're included in an article and you're usually quoted with 2 to 3 other experts, which is also really good because again, now you're being positioned as an expert among the experts. There's a guest post or a byline. This is when you write an article and publish it. So this is when, maybe you reach out to a publication and they're like, well, we don't have any openings right now, but if you want to write an article, we'll publish it. So this is called guest posting. It's also kind of like a editorial as well. A TV segment. You typically get 2 to 4 minutes on a news or a talk show. So especially if you have trending topics that could go on the news, or maybe you even get onto like a actual talk show, you have very little time when you're on there. So you want to plan when you're pitching and your content, what do you want to express in that 2 to 4 minutes? Podcasts are mainly audio, but definitely sometimes visual, especially nowadays with YouTube. And this is typically an interview done by the host where they're asking you questions. And then there's radio. So this is audio shows on local, regional, or national radio stations or things like Sirius, I think it's called. I haven't listened to the radio in a really long time, but it is still out there and there are still audiences. So these are the different types of media that you're going to be able to get in touch with. So the first thing we want to do is dive into your dream publications. We're going to get into this a little bit more in a minute. We want to remember that this is an active service, okay? So your personal brand is not really about you, right? In the whole entire personal branding process, you were mainly focused on your audience. Who are they? How does your offer apply to them? How do they talk about it? So like your whole personal brand is built out of service, as it should be. So is the media, because you have to remember the media is serving a customer as well. So they need to serve their audience with whatever it is that you're delivering. So when you're a guest on the podcast, yes, you win. But for the podcast host, they're more interested in serving their audience a topic that they want to help with. Do you get? So make sure you understand that aspect. It's not about going out there and just promoting your offers. It's about adding value to that publication or podcast audience. For a pitch to be successful, it must be timely, it must be relevant, and it must have actionable insights. Again, they're serving an audience. So people need to be able to look at or listen to or view whatever form of media you're on and take something away from it. There needs to be value. So it's always going to be of service, and it needs to be valuable to the publication's audience. So there's a couple of things I recommend. So one, in order for published media, this is like traditional news, talk shows, magazine articles online, there's a tool called Quoted. And I'm going to show you some aspects of this tool, but there's this tool called Quoted that's going to help you with this part of the process of getting media contacts, of being able to reach out to them, being able to pitch them, being able to be interviewed. And then there's Rephonic, and this is a podcast pitching tool. So these are two that I recommend, but also understand that there's so many different tools out there. This is what I'm personally using. You can go and research and pick one that is right for you. You do not have to use what I'm using. I'm just giving you what that is. These are the ones that work for me and have worked for my clients. But again, do your research, find what works for you. And also understand that like platforms and media change all the time. So there's always new, better ones coming out. I've been using these two though for a couple of years, so they're really good. And then you will want to have some type of an email tracking system. If you don't have this, it's not the end of the world, but it's really helpful if you can see who's opened your emails, who's engaged with your emails, what that's looked like, because it just helps you to understand both from a marketing perspective with your clients, but then also from the media perspective of like who opened your pitch and read it, how many times did they click on you? Like that will show you how interested someone is. If you send out an email and nobody opens it, it's not the email, it's the subject line. If you send out an email and a lot of people read it, but there's no conversion event, they don't buy from you, they don't book you on a podcast, it's your subject is good, but the body of the email is not good. So you need to work on that. If they have opened that email 6 times, you know they're interested. That's a key to follow up. Okay. So that's why you want to use some type of an email tracking system. And there's so many out there. I didn't even put one in here. Okay, so we're going to go through and we're going to create our master media list. This is the media list that you will be working off of on a regular basis in order to get yourself into publications. And there's multiple ways we're going to build your media list. So the first one is called reverse searching for reporters. This means that you say to yourself, well, I want to get on Forbes. And so I'm going to go on Forbes and I want to talk about branding. So I'm going to go on Forbes and I'm going to search branding and I'm going to see what journalists talk about branding. And then I'm going to take those journalists' names and their contact information and put it into my spreadsheet. That's called reverse searching. So you are targeting a publication that you want to be in. You are looking for those who are talking about what you're talking about and you're adding them in to your media list. The next is downloading a list from the media database. This is where we will look at Quoted and we will look at Rephonic. And again, I'm going to give you some back-end information on those a little bit further down. But this is where you'll go on there and you'll say, okay, I want to talk about branding, and it'll pull up all the publications that talk about branding. And then you can download a whole list from there. And then there's the follow the leader method. And this is where earlier when you did your competitor research, this can be really helpful because if they have been in the media, you can go through and be like, oh, where have they been? What publications are they in? What podcasts have they been on? And you can go get yourself booked on those same podcasts because chances are if your competitors are there, your audience, your target audience is also probably there. And so that's the follow the leader method. Or you can also be like, oh, this is a person that is in my industry. They're not a competitor, but I like what they're doing. I'm going to go look at all the media coverage they have, and I'm going to follow that same route. So you can use this however it makes sense to you. I'm presenting you with the 3 ways to collect media. Again, you take this information, go apply it, and then remember what I said in the beginning, you make your own rules. So figure out which one of these works. Maybe you do all 3. Maybe you just want to download from the media database, like whatever works for you. Okay. Not all media outlets are created equal, okay? So when you want to make sure you vet out the media, especially if you're downloading a media list. So if you go into Quoted and you type in branding, and you want everybody who's talking about branding or health or whatever, and you just pitch them out there, then they write about you, which is amazing. You want to make sure the publication and the reporter aligns with your audience, because what if they write about you, but they hold like extreme opposite views? And I'll give you an example. I had a client who was very anti-religious when I was in publicity. And I was teaching them how to get PR. And so they went out and they did it and they got published by somebody, but it was on a very religious platform. And they were like so upset and bothered by it. So that person didn't do the research to make sure that the publication aligned with what their values were. I had one who got published in like a very conservative publication, but they were very liberal. Again, they didn't do their research. So you want to just take a little bit of time. You don't have to like deep dive in and dissect these people, but you want to just make sure it aligns with your values. Otherwise, now you're tapping into an audience that isn't for you, right? You want to look for signs of professionalism. Are they accurate? Do they engage? So for a lot of publications, they share their stuff online. Are people engaging in it? Is it as helpful as you think it is? When you're looking at the reporter, you want to do a couple of things. Media lists are only updated on like a monthly basis. So you could download a list and now that reporter actually has left their job and they work for a different publication. So you want to make sure that who you're pitching is accurate. I have in the beginning of my career, I spent like 2 hours putting this perfect pitch together for this reporter that I was like, oh, they're going to love my content. I didn't pay attention, right? So I went and looked at their column. I went online. It was a Forbes reporter. So I went onto Forbes. I found this reporter and I was like, look at all the content. They're talking about the exact thing that my client does. I put all this effort into this pitch. I didn't look that they hadn't published anything in 3 years. So obviously they were not a viable contact. They were no longer at Forbes, but it doesn't necessarily say like, hey, this person has left. So when you're downloading these things, you want to make sure, is this person still at the publication? Also, as journalism has shifted, and there are budget cuts, sometimes a reporter has to switch beats. So they might go from talking about tech to talking about health or vice versa. And so you might send them a health pitch and they're like, we haven't covered health in months. So you want to do a little bit of research, right? Like, and the same way you would do some research on your audience, you want to spend a little time researching these publications and the reporters. You also want to review their body of work. So some reporters are very quirky and they like to be funny and they have a certain style of writing. And if you can mimic your pitch to that, that's super helpful. Just like when we were talking about how does your audience talk about their pain points, how does the reporter share and communicate? And then you want to look at their beat and their coverage and make sure the area of expertise, excuse me, is their beat. And we say beat in PR, but that essentially means like they're subject matter experts in it. So they cover only health, they cover only tech. So you really want to just dive into these reporters a little bit more, as well as the publications, make sure things are in alignment. Get familiar with the publication and the audience, right? Because we're serving the audience. That's who that publication is serving. So the more you're familiar, the easier this is going to be for you. So when you reverse search, say you go to Forbes and you know that this hits a very particular type of, and I'm just using Forbes because it's like a publication that everybody knows, but say it's something that you're very familiar with. So you're like, I know that Forbes is this great business platform. Their audience is very business oriented for the most part. And so I know I'm going to do business oriented stories. So I'm going to pick maybe branding, and then I might pick entrepreneurship, and then I might pick, maybe I'll pick visibility at that point, right? And then I'm going to pick 3 to 5 reporters in those sections that align. So I've gone to Forbes, I've searched on Forbes, and I've clicked on branding. Now I've searched through branding and I found 3 reporters that I think are a good, alignment for the content that I want to share. And that's how you're going to add them to your media list. Again, this is the reverse searching. This way does take a little bit more time, but it can be a lot more direct and impactful. So often with the reverse searching, because you're doing this research part, you're honing in very specifically on people that you will get covered by. And you could have, like, if you did 100 pitches to reverse searching, and pitching is emailing them your story. If you did 100 pitches on the reverse search, you are highly likely to get published, versus if you're just downloading media lists and you do 100 over there, it just may be so wide of a net that you didn't narrow down enough and you may not get published over there. So I'm just explaining the difference. So again, you can pick. Again, this has a little bit more lead time before you can actually send your email or your pitch out. So this is one way to gather your reporters. The next is to download the media list. So to go onto Quoted and put it in and say, I want to talk about branding. I want to see all the reporters who talk about branding, and then to identify the ones that you want to pick and vet them out. And then we have the follow the leader method. So this is going to that person or company's website that's either a competitor or someone you aspire to emulate in some way. And you're going to review their recent press, their awards. You're going to add this to the list of publications. And then you can also do a Google search. So you could be like, pick somebody, Google search their name, and then look at all the media that they've been in. Okay, we're going to get your pitch ready. So there's 3 types of pitches, and I'm going to be breaking all of this down more in the worksheets. I just want to give you a bigger overview so you can wrap your head around this information, then we can dive into more of the specifics. So the 3 different types of pitches are called 1, source filing. This is when you say, hey, I'm Kristen. I talk about these 3 things and I'm available for commentary. So this means you're just saying, hey, I just want to get on your radar. If you're ever doing a story about this, I'm the person to ask about it. Number 2 is a story pitch. This is when you have a very specific story that you want to share. And this could be like, this could really be anything, but it's going to be specific to that reporter's beat. So maybe you're talking about, if we're going to go with branding, maybe you're talking about, I want to share a story about how creating a personal brand transformed my life. And maybe you're telling the story behind the personal branding experience you had versus what everybody thinks it is, right? Because the personal branding experience is a spiritual experience, but most people don't realize that. And then the third one is a theme or a national event. So maybe you are, maybe you're in health, okay? And there's like national, I don't know, National Diabetes Day or something, and maybe you target people who you're trying to prevent diabetes. So on preparing for your pitches, you might want to be like, oh, there's that national holiday. This is a great time to share my expertise because I know reporters are going to be looking for this and wanting to talk about it. Maybe what you do is really good for a holiday sale. And so maybe you want to be talking to reporters who are going to be putting together holiday content. So that's more of like the theme or national event. This can also be like when a national event occurs, like, trying to think of an example that would apply to like more of the spiritual aspect of things, but maybe I don't know, maybe some catastrophic event takes place and maybe you are someone who helps people with like PTSD or trauma or something like that. Maybe you're trauma informed something. And so some type of traumatic event has happened in the world and you can comment on that. So you could be like, hey, this traumatic event has happened and I can share some things to help people navigate this situation, right? A good example of this is in COVID, when all of a sudden we saw all of these articles about remote work. There was a lot of people who had been remote working for a really long time and they were able to offer all this advice to these publications for those who are going newly into remote work. So you can use national events or different themes that are going on in order to create your pitches. Further into the nitty-gritty parts of everything I just discussed, okay? So the first thing you want to do is complete this prep worksheet. This is getting you ready to create your dream media list and to pitch it. So the first thing you want to do is look at your dream publications. So there might be publications that you already have in mind, right? So maybe that's a parenting magazine, maybe that's Psychology Today, whatever the magazine is, or podcast, or whatever it is that you want to get on, you want to make that list. And then you want to get clear on why you chose it, right? This is like, oh, my audience is 1,000% there. I know this would give me so much credibility in my space. Is it a high priority, a medium priority, a low priority? Because there might be one you want to be in, and it's not going to really like further your business, but maybe it's a childhood dream that you've had. So you just want to prioritize high, low, and medium based on the outcomes that you're going to get, right? Now we want to think about your dream headline. What is the dream headline that you would love to have for an article? And remember, what we're doing is spiritual, okay? This is all 5D personal branding. The transformation is taking place in beautiful ways. And so part of this is getting clear on like, how do I want to be like acknowledged in the world? I'm authentically putting myself out there. How would I like to see that mirrored back to me? And so maybe you want a talk show to say like, oh, top health coach is doing XYZ, or I don't know, think of a dream headline. I'm sure you have something in your mind. And if you don't, that's okay. Skip this. I didn't have dream headlines when I started, right? And so you want to think about, why does this headline matter? If you got to share this headline with someone, what would that mean? Would that give you instant credibility, instant validation? Maybe it just makes you feel good. Like, what is it? And then you want to think about the story angle you have that supports that headline. Now we want to look at the audience alignment. So this is where you're looking at the publication or the media outlet. So what is the publication? Okay, because think about it. If what you do is parenting, you want to focus on parenting magazines, right? Because why? Your audience cares. Why do they read it? So they might read one parenting magazine that's totally focused on health. They might read another parenting magazine that's totally focused on behavior. Like there's so many different types of niches here. So you want to be really clear on the publications that you're pitching and why, and make sure it aligns to all of the things that you're doing and what your audience is likely to already be consuming. Because if you're on something that your audience isn't consuming, you can still do it if it's fun to you, but then like you're not in front of the people you want to be in front of, right? So think of storylines that connect. This is where you can think of different headlines or topics and why that would resonate with your audience. So go back to the social media, like 5 ways to overcome the fear of being seen. 3 ways to improve your health in 30 days, or healing made easy, or you're thinking of these like snappy types of headlines and why that would resonate with your audience. And then you just want to kind of prepare yourself. So you want to have a short bio, 2 to 3 sentences of who you are, because there's usually very little room, whether it's a podcast episode or an article, to talk about who you are. So sometimes it'll be like Kristen Shea, quantum healer. It's very short. Or sometimes it'll be like Kristen Shea, transformation coach, helping women do XYZ. So just put something super short together that it makes it really easy for who's reading it and then for whoever's publishing it. And you want to have 3 to 5 talking points that you're always going to talk about. So visibility, I'm always going to talk about. I'm always going to talk about like codependence and healing because it's such a present matrix program, right? I'm always going to talk about abundance. These are things that like, no matter what I'm getting published in, I'm having these conversations. And then you want to think about the calls to action, right? Because if you get in front of these audience platforms, but you're not bringing anyone into your world, are you asking them to go to your website? Are you asking them to download a freebie? Are you having them follow you on a social media platform? Are you asking them to book a call or a session? Like, how are you inviting them into your world? And you want to have a call to action. It's fine if you want to practice in the beginning, but you have to remember, like, make things easy for people, because if you don't make it easy, then they're going to listen to your episode or read the article and then not convert to anything. So you're losing, the audience and all the views and connection that you're getting. This is where you also want to make sure like your website and your social media handles are easy to communicate. So for me, my handles on everything are the Kristen Shea. That's not the handle I wanted. I was originally Quantum Chris, but that wasn't available on all platforms. So then when I was on a podcast, I'd have to be like, well, on Instagram, it's this, and on TikTok, it's this. And you don't want to have to do that. Make it easy. Follow me on all platforms at the Kristen Shea. So same with your website. I don't drive people to a website very often. I feel like websites are pretty much obsolete at this point, but I think it, can be good to have them. I want to put them right into an offer, or I want to give them a freebie. That's it, because it invites people immediately into my world. And I want it to be something that's so aligned, right? Because you might hear follow the Kristen Shea on Instagram. Well, that they're in the middle of listening to a podcast episode. They may not stop right then and go follow me, and they're probably going to forget about that later. But if I offer a freebie or I have a program that solves their problem, they're so likely to click on that link and make the time and make it a priority, which brings them into my world. And then you just want to think of assets to have available. So a professional headshot, because they'll use that for different thumbnails. It's okay if you don't have one. I didn't have one in the beginning either. The brand bio, like we talked about, links to your website and social media, an offer description or a lead magnet. A lead magnet is like a freebie, like a, hey, download how to do XYZ. And then a media kit is where you can create like a folder on your Google Drive or just a folder on your desktop, and you can email it to people that has all of this in there. So that just makes it super easy for you to have everything packaged together, because every media opportunity you get, they're going to be like, hey, can you send me your headshot? Can you send me your bio? Oh, could you send me your website? Could you send me this? Could you send me? And so if you just have it all packaged together, it makes it really, really easy. So this is your prep work, and this gets to be fun. And then we're going to prepare to pitch. Okay. And this is the fun part. A pitch is essentially just an email saying, hey, I want to be on your podcast. Hey, I want to be in your magazine. And hey, most importantly, I can add value to your audience. So for a source filing pitch, you're going to look at the prompts. Again, put in your notes or fill in the examples like I talked about earlier, but I gave you an example for each. Okay. So for a source filing pitch, we might be pitching Jane Doe. She's a health and wellness reporter, and she works at Mind Body Green. I'm a good source for her because I'm a certified energy healer who has helped 100 plus clients release trauma. I can speak on trends in holistic healing, all of these things, right? Plug and play whatever examples. I'm going to include my 1 to 2 sentence bio and the topics I can comment on. So I want to provide her with topics that I am an expert on. Okay, so this is your source filing pitch, and I have a bunch of templates and examples for you. And then there's your story pitch. So it's going to be the same thing, but you're going to be talking about a story, how rock bottom became my business launch pad. Why it's timely, because so many women are leaving corporate jobs and starting businesses right now. So the story inspires them to trust it and take the leap. The call to action would be like, hey, would you be open to interviewing me? Or could I be a source for an upcoming article? Pitch 3 is that theme or national event. Hey, it's Mental Health Awareness Month. Let me talk about how health healing visibility wounds supports mental health. And it's the reason it serves their audience. It gives readers practical tools for boosting confidence and mental health. So when you're writing your pitch, keep it super short, 1 to 3 short paragraphs. If you inundate reporters, they get like 100 pitches a day. Okay. So if you inundate them with too much, if they can't quickly look at what you do, they're not even going to read the pitch. They're going to open it and say no. So you want to keep it super short, super simple, and something they can scan with their eyes. So they can go, yes, I'm interested. And you want to make it about the audience and the value, not about you. Personalize each of these pitches, right? So you want to make sure you're using their name. Don't send out like this mass email that just says, hi, everyone. You want to make sure it's personalized and always include a way for them to contact you. So they can obviously always get back to you via email, but maybe there's another way. Maybe you put your cell phone number in there. Like it doesn't matter. Just make sure they have a way to contact you. So we're going to move into the pitching aspect, but there's this template I wanted to show you first, which is where you're going to gather your master media list. So this is like all the publications, your dream list of publications that you just want to get into, okay? And you're going to put there the publication. So it's going to be like Mind Body Green, the reporter's first and last name. What is their title? Are they a reporter? Are they a journalist? Are they an editor? Are they a correspondent? Like you want to know who you're talking to because you don't want to be pitching, like if you're trying to get on the show, you don't want to pitch the host because the host doesn't book people, the producer books people. All of this will be in like the databases I show you. Whatever their email address is, what beat they cover. So maybe they cover health and wellness, maybe they cover economics, whatever it is. And then any notes you put. So if you find a reporter and you like them, you might put a note here that says like, oh, they tend to write about this topic and they have a really witty style. So you want to make sure your pitch is going to be witty. And then you do beat specific. So this is your master dream list. And then beat specific is going to be like, because, and this is the publications you put together is like the dreams. So you want in these publications, but then you're going to have like, oh, I just want to get into a health publication. You're going to have all the health publications. Oh, I just want to get into an economics publication. You're going to have all the economics. Oh, I just want to get into a publication about healing, and you're going to put all of that in, or these podcasts. And then a podcast tab if you want. So it's up to you. Again, I'm giving you how I did this as a publicist. You can pick your own organization method. If you like to have everything on just one tab, you can do that. It's totally up to you. Okay, now we're going to dive into the media pitching instructions. So again, you want to research your reporter. You want to make sure the publication aligns with you and your values, especially if it's one you haven't heard of before. Make sure the reporter has a good reputation, like they're not out there putting like super controversial topics out there. Read some of their recent work so you know what they do. You want to write a really strong subject line, and I've given you some different topics here or examples, but expert tip, 3 strategies to overcome the fear of being seen. And then I put in there perfect for mental health awareness, right? Story idea, how rock bottom became my business launchpad, or resource, I'm a visibility coach and I can be an expert for your commentary. And then you want to structure your email pitch. So you have your greeting, you've got your hook, the story, your bio, a call to action, and all your signature information. I have templates for you, so don't worry. And then you want to look at following up professionally. So give them 5 to 7 days to get back to you. If it's not like a timely thing where there's like an event taking place, give them time to get back to you, and then just send a super short follow-up like, hey, just checking in. Did you have any interest? Happy to suggest other topics to you. And then you can follow up once or twice maximum. If there's no response, then they're not interested. And then in that moment, it's not a no, it's a not right now. So that means your story didn't resonate, or the topics that you were suggesting didn't resonate. That doesn't mean it's a no. It just means I need to maybe do a little bit more research and see if I can talk about some different things that are more resonant for their audience. And you want to build relationships, right? Like if you meet a reporter or a podcast host, you want to get on there multiple times. Like that's the gold standard, is to just have people reaching out to you and wanting you to come back. So develop a relationship, send a thank you note to them, follow up and build a relationship when it's not just you always asking for something, right? Make sure you share the social media, share the article on social media and tag them. A lot of reporters and podcasts get paid by the view for sure. And then a lot of reporters get either paid or bonused on how many clicks they get. So you sharing on social media helps them, and they might be like, "Oh, that person promotes the work. I'm going to prioritize covering them over someone else." And continue engaging with their content, right? Typical relationship. And then just a pro tip here, be newsworthy by trying to pitch to a season, a holiday, a trend, or a cultural conversation that's already going on. Make it easy for them. You can include links and photos or clear takeaways. Make it so easy. Reporters are really busy. Keep it human. They're busy, but also like they're humans on the other side. So just be a person talking to another person, and that is always your best bet to get in. And then I put together these pitching templates for you. So this would be like, hey, I'm source filing here, a mental health and wellness expert. Here's who I am. Here's the topics that I can talk about. And here's how you can get in touch with me. So I gave you a couple of different ones for different industries, right? And then I gave you some pitch templates for the news story pitch. So again, like mental health awareness. Hey, I noticed you're covering these topics for these months. I want to talk to you about a couple of reasons why I could be a contributor. So you're being very specific, like, hey, mental health awareness is next month. Here's 3 things that you should be covering, and here's how I can contribute to them. If there's an economic trend going on, like if something's going on in the economy, maybe you're an abundance or a business coach, that's a great time for you to step in and be the expert. So, hey, this is what's going on, and here's what I'm seeing. I want to contribute because your audience needs to know this. And then finally, hear your personal story. So this is like the rock bottom to soul aligned. So this is like saying, hey, I hit rock bottom. Here's how I overcame it. This is an inspirational story. I think your audience would really enjoy hearing. Here's my story. Here's a couple of things that I'll talk about if you choose to interview me. And then you close it out. So these are some pitch templates. I mean, if I were you, I would just copy and paste these and then make them your own. Now I'm going to show you the behind the scenes tools that I talked about. So this is quoted. This is standard traditional media. You'll find some podcasts on here, but this is mainly like news stations and online articles and magazines. So there's this opportunities tab here, and this is where you can search all opportunities that reporters are currently looking for. So reporters will come onto this website and they'll be like, hey, I'm writing a story on this. I need experts for this. So you could type in spiritual. We want to see if anybody's writing a spiritual story. So you can kind of scroll down and see who's writing different topics on spirituality. Maybe we want to look at abundance. So there's not a lot of source files. So they're now highlighting some reporters that sometimes talk about these, but you can see there's not a lot on abundance. Maybe we're going to do mental health. You can see there's a lot here. So you can see these are people who are actively looking for sources. So this is going to be your quickest way to get media because they are already looking for something, okay? And they're very specific. They give all of the information. So you can click in here and you can send them an email right through the platform. The other way you can do this is go to the media database. This is a list of all the reporters and what they do. So you could be like, I want a list of all spiritual reporters. And it's going to give you this list. And you're going to see when I talked about doing research on your beat, right? So like, for example, if we look at Maria, she comes up under spiritual. There's a little bit here, but there's not a ton on spiritual. She does a lot on parenting and happiness and psychology and health. She's got a lot of different things that she does. And then you've got Mark Bell, and he's talking about alien spirituality, reincarnation. So do you see how you can search one beat? The beat is spirituality, but they're all covering it from different perspectives. So if you send Mark something and you're just like, hey, I want to talk about, the spiritual journey of visibility, he's probably not going to get it because he's talking about aliens and afterlife. But Maria is probably going to get it because she's talking about psychology. So she might understand the psychological aspect behind visibility. So this is where you want to vet out your reporters and make sure it makes sense. You can also like click on these reporters and like go search them. They have all their social media here. Sometimes you'll just do like, let's look at Alan Hartley, Conscious Living. So we can see right off the bat, Conscious Living is obviously not a big publication because it doesn't even really pop up in the search results here. So, and you can see we don't know, there's so many different Alan Hartleys. This is not one I would spend time on. I would see this as a search result and I would immediately move on to something that's more aligned. So maybe I'm going to look at I mean, you're seeing me in the real time process. This is literally what I would be doing is scrolling through until something stood out to me that I recognized, because that's how I approach it. You could certainly go through each of these, but you just want to look. So iHeartMedia, but then look at, she does like traffic. She does a little bit of self-discovery, but her main thing is traffic. So she probably writes about self-discovery when she has time. She's not going to be a good reporter to pitch. Let's see who else. Let's do something more specific. Let's do healing. You could honestly get as specific as you want to. Okay, Women's World Magazine. So she talks about longevity, pain management, self-awareness, female well-being, aging, and healing. So we're gonna look her up. So she's a freelance writer. So this means she writes for multiple outlets. And so she kind of does this on a freelance basis. So she would be someone who is good to share with, but know that it could go in any different publication. So what we could do is then look at Women's World Magazine. And we could see, okay, let's go into wellness. See how it's like 5 sleep tricks, like 5 ways to do this, 3 ways to do that is really good titles for people. And we could say like, okay, keeping your memory sharp. So let's see what this person writes about. And then we see it's Kaylee Griffith or Griffin. And so you can see that she has a passion for storytelling. She likes to talk about women. Obviously, she writes for multiple. She's been at Women's World and First for Women. You can learn more about her degree, all the things that she does. But then you can look at like she's very much more of a trendy reporter, right? She's talking about like Real Housewives, the TikTok, viral content. So she's talking about trendier topics. So she would be someone that you would approach if you had a more trendy wellness topic. So maybe you're talking about health in like a new aspect and you're saying like, you know, 3 new hacks to lose weight or something like that. That's how you would pitch Kaylee. You would look for something like that. So this is how you're going to use this database. Because Katie was freelance, she's a great person to source file with, but she's not someone I would spend a ton of time on. But I would be like, oh, I want Women's World. I'm going to go find a reporter. Then what we just did when we went into Women's World and then we typed on healing and then or wellness, and then we clicked on a reporter. That's the reverse searching. So we just said, hey, I want to be in Women's World. Let's go there. I'm going to click on wellness. Oh, this looks like an interesting story. Oh, this is what she writes about. That's reverse searching. So they all kind of go hand in hand, right, as you're going through these media lists. But say you wanted to talk to Susanna, and she's at the Telegraph. You have her email right here, and you could just send her an email and send her a pitch. Or you can check her off and you could add all the people you want on your media list and you could do an export and start doing it. So this is how you're going to pitch and quote it. And then in Raphonic, this is the podcast system. So you're going to do the same thing here. So you're like spiritual podcasts. And it's going to give you so much information here. Okay. Um, and you can look at podcast by topic, by title. If there's like a certain, I don't think you'd ever look at publisher with podcasts, but maybe you want to do like this spiritual teachings one. And it started 16 years ago. They have 900 episodes. They publish twice weekly. Like these are really good stats. And if you upgrade to a full plan, I go in and out of the paid plan. Like I haven't pitched myself for media in months. It hasn't been a priority for me. But when I go back into it, I do pay for it so I can get all the extra information. But she's somebody I would want to pitch and say, hey, like I have all of this, these topics I can share. You can see some of her viewership, again, on the paid platforms. That's why when I am actively pitching, I do pay. And then I just shut it off when I'm not using it. So that's what I would recommend for you too, because you'll get all the different information. So you could be like, oh, I want to see, oh, they get 2 million views on Spotify or audio listens or whatever. So this is how you would search your different podcasts. And then again, you could add this to your master list. You can export it. You could even search a particular podcast. So if we wanted to search, I don't know, Mel Robbins. You're going to see her podcast come up. Well, my computer's freezing, but oh, here we go. So you're going to see she started her podcast 3 years ago. She publishes twice weekly here. You're going to see different stats here. So she's got different YouTube videos. This has 1.1 thousand. She could have published that 5 minutes ago. Who knows? Like it's not, you have to like, it's not always accurate, I guess. But what information they do have down here is you can see how many subscribers she has on different platforms. So you could see on Podbean alone, she has 61,000 people. The podcast app, another 20,000. So you can get all these stats to understand like what kind of an audience can you reach. And then you would contact them, you would add them to your list, or you would export them, putting them all over here on your master media list. So this is how you are going to pitch yourself and get into podcasts and get into media articles and start sharing your magic, your message, your medicine with the world.